Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Town of Dewey Beach Town Council and public hearing, as well as a monthly meeting. It's being held at the Dewey Beach Life Saving Station as well as via Zoom. Today is February 13th, 2026, and it's 3 o'clock. With that, I'd like to convene the Town Commissioners meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Commissioner Gibbings.
Present.
Commissioner Bauer.
I'm here now.
Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
Commissioner Jazinski.
Here remotely.
And Mayor Bill Stevens is here, so we have a quorum. First item, we can have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'd like for any public comments for non-agenda items. Anyone here for non-agenda items or online, Kate? No. Okay, we'll move on. Committee reports. Commissioner Persinger.
The Resiliency and Sustainability Committee met earlier this week. We talked mostly about refining the project proposal for developing a resiliency plan for the town. The approach right now is to try to work with one contractor. We've got a telephone meeting set up for next week with a subgroup so that we can talk this through and then bring that project back to the town council probably in April, I think.
Okay, very good.
That's it.
Commissioner Gibbings.
The Finance, formerly known as Investment Committee, met on February 9th. The first order of business was reviewing the Brown Advisory Report, which has been posted for others to see easily. Sean included a discussion about total annual expenses, fees that we have to pay, and it's just over 1%. And it's paid to a combination of Brown Advisory, U.S. Bank, and non-Brown Advisory managers. It may look like the amount is going up, but it is 1%, just 1% as our stuff goes up over time. He also discussed specific strategies. He's talking about Japan right now, in case you all want to know where to put your money. January financials were reviewed. And as Ms. Hall has said in the past, transfer tax continues to exceed expectations, with about 4 houses per month selling at an increased value. The committee then reviewed all the budget proposals, and this will be discussed later. I don't remember which item number in the agenda, but the highlights of the Investment Committee, Finance Committee's proposals is that we agree with the transfer of the tax, increase of the transfer tax budget. Would like parking hours to be 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. rather than 9 a.m. to midnight as originally proposed. Paying attention to beach patrol clocking standards, the 3%, not 4% raises, and we are pleased to hear that the medical increase will be 5% rather than 10%. And all the details are later in our discussion today.
Thank you. Commissioner Jazinski.
Well, the Infrastructure Committee did not meet, but we definitely need to be thanking our town manager and Senator Coon's office, and town manager will go through what's happened with the project and the funding and whatnot.
Thank you. Commissioner Bauer.
Marketing Committee is working on what we know as the Buy a Brick program. So there's going to be some good push coming up on that in the next month or so. Kate, how many are we up to now?
213.
213, okay. Moving along.
Moving along.
I think we were 160 last month, right?
Right.
So that's great. And we're hoping to, get everything in by, beginning of May, maybe, somewhere around there, by at least Memorial Day. But we can still do that. But at one point, you got to put your sidewalk in. So we'd like to do it all in one fell swoop. And one of the things we were thinking of changing the marketing, the branding of it, was the Walk of Fame for Dewey Beach. So it's getting people to think about, I don't know if Ellen likes that idea or not, but buying a brick just doesn't sound exciting.
You don't want to be like pave the way?
paved the way.
Okay.
We're open to some different slogans on it. but,
Okay, sounds good.
So that's what we got going on.
Great, thank you. Town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to start off by saying the county, Sussex County has contacted us. The water usage in Dewey Beach has significantly increased. Why? Because we have a lot of pipes that are breaking all over town. So if you see your neighbors have any broken pipes or anything at all, please, you can call the 302-855-7379. That's the emergency number, 24/7 for Sussex County Water Department. You can also contact the administration office at Town Hall, and after hours, you could also contact the police, but all we're gonna do is turn around and call that admin number. But anybody and everybody, if you see anybody, or any pipes or any water, please let us know. The pump station, yes, as Commissioner Jazinski had said, we'd like to thank the public for sending the letters. Senator Coons and our other representatives heard your voices, and Senator Coons got directly involved in this, met with the Army Corps and got the money freed up. So we're back to business again. We're waiting right now for the Army Corps to review the NAD, they call it. They're waiting on the NAD to review the IDR. Of course, those are all acronyms that they use, but it is being reviewed so we can start. The next phase of this should be designing and drafting the actual pump station. We also were approved, but through Senator Coons' office, I'd written a grant with the police department for money for the new town hall, and the amount of, they came back and they said they would fund $443,000. Now that can be used for an emergency generator. It can be used for security equipment for the new town hall. What would that be? Controlled access to the doors, security cameras, and IT for the police department. I've not been contacted by the Department of Justice yet to find out how that works. I have to wait for them to contact me, and then we'll find out how we get our reimbursement for that, for the actual materials. Worked with DelDOT. We sent a letter to Secretary Duffy of the U.S. Department of Transportation to try to get some grant money for the Coastal Corridor Resiliency project that DelDOT is doing. Of course, that runs from Houston Street and Dewey down to Fenwick Island, so we'll wait and see what happens there. For a building official, we've had about 15 people apply for that position. We've reviewed those, Jim Dedes and I have, and Sheena. 3 of them we interviewed, but none of the 3 that we interviewed met the requirements that we're looking for. So we're going to keep that open, and we're going to continue to have that out for the public. And right now, we are going to continue to use Dave Naples from CSI, who we currently are using as our representative on the new town hall. We've used in the past with the Hyatt and some other projects in town. We're going to continue to use him as an ad-need basis until we find a new person for that position. I applied for a CTF grant through Representative Claire Hall for the 3 roads that we paved in the north end. That was Chesapeake first block, Carolina first block, and New Jersey the second block. I had 3 estimates. The lowest one was $73,000. We spent that. It was approved by the town in the budget, but I want to see if we can recoup some of that money with CTF funding. Representative Claire Hall acknowledged that she received my request, but that's where it's sitting right now. CRF, I'm applying for CRF funding right now. That's some of the funding. We got the $3 million back in 2023 with CRF funding. I'm applying for that again also. Bids are back for the Dickinson Bayside project for the flooding down at the end of the street. We had 3 bid on it, on-site, George Lynch and Adel. We'll know by the end of today which one of those 3 we'll pick, and we'll start doing that work as soon as possible. The county will be installing concrete sleeves around everything in the streets. Everything that they paved, any type of water or any other sewer that's in the new pavement, they have to come back, go around those and put concrete sleeves in. That's going to take about 3 or 4 weeks, depending on the weather throughout the town. I'd like to thank the chamber for $600 towards our new shack that we're going to put on the beach. Kate, if you could bring up that picture of the shack. Our maintenance folks built this shack. When I priced this out to have somebody do it, it was going to be about $3,500. It'll be at the very end, Kate, I'm sorry. Yeah, there. That's going to go down here next to Dave Lynam's shack on the beach. And the reason the chamber kicked in some of the money for it, it cost us around $1,200 to $1,300 to build that. On the left side, we're going to have the chamber material in there. What is that for? The movies and the bonfires. Right now, they have it stored behind here. They have to take it over the dune and bring it back. And then on the right side, we're going to have the ADA wheelchairs. And that'll be down here on the beach next to Dave's Lynham Shack, and a great job by our maintenance team building that. I'd like to
Really
thank, oh, go ahead.
That looks really nice.
I'd like to thank Diane Hanson for a $500 donation for flowers that we can plant on the center island this spring. We need to, Mayor, discuss about Volunteer of the Year. I don't know if you're going to bring that up a little bit later. I'd like to thank the Finance Committee, especially the Chair, Sheena, and Commissioner Persinger and the Mayor for all their hard work on the budget. Really appreciate all the hard work that you put into that. On March 5th, there is the Rascal meeting. That's an environmental resiliency meeting that they have every year. It's going to be up in Dover at Dell Tech. We've invited folks from the Resiliency Committee and Commissioner Persinger if he would like to attend that. Kate will be attending it for the town because I'll be attending an emergency operations planning meeting that day over at Georgetown during that time. Pending any questions, that's all I have, Mayor.
I don't have any questions for Bill? No. Chief?
Oh, real
Yeah,
quick, I'm sorry.
I
This
want
is,
pictures.
so we put the transformer platform out at the parking lot at FEMA +2. FEMA +2. DP&L came back today and said it may be just a little high because they don't like to work on their transformers if they have to use a step ladder. So what we may do is just put a little stoop on the north side of that, about a 12-inch stoop, so they could stand on that if they have to work in their transformer. I was more concerned about flooding
Right.
and making sure the transformer. Next picture, please. So this is, they're putting on the insulation on the side of the building. Next, please. This is what the siding's looking like. And if you look at the front of the building, they've actually got it up above the windows right now. Next slide, please. So they've been started to insulate the inside of the building. This is the first floor. Next slide, please. This is all the piping that they are running above. That'll all be covered up by the ceiling. The biggest pipe there is the sprinkler system. Next one, please. That's the parking window, enforcement window, looking out into the law lobby there, shared with the police department. That's the third floor. They've got the drywall done on the ceiling, and they'll start doing the insulation and the drywall on the walls. You may ask, why are they doing the third floor? They have to get the roof warm enough so when they put the sealant on it, the sealant actually holds. It's been too cold for them to use the sealant. So they're doing that. They've got the bullets up there, heaters. They're trying to heat that area up so the roof's warm enough so they can finish the roof. Next. And then that's what the insulation looks like on the other side of that drywall. And the shack. So that's pending any questions, Mayor. That's all I have.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Barrett?
one question about the building official. We're not getting enough applicants applying. I mean, one of the concerns.
We're getting applicants, 15. They're just not as qualified as Jim Dedes and I would like.
Right, okay.
So we'd like them to be IBC, International Building Code, ICC, so floodplain management. As of right now, we're not finding that in the folks that we're hiring. The folks that are putting the applications, they would be good for an inspector that would be going out.
Right.
They would meet those qualifications, but somebody as our building official, we're just not getting right now. Jim, do you have any comments?
No, I totally agree with what you've said. And that's why we're using David Naples as our contact to help us out through the project. And he's turning around, working mainly on larger projects, commercial as well as brand new residential construction. And in addition, major renovations. His turnaround is incredible, and we're keeping up. We're really keeping up with everything for the time being.
So to make sure that what we're trying to hire, we're paying the appropriate price for, so.
If you look at the neighboring towns, their building officials are well over $100,000. If we wanted to really, I mean, right now I'm fine with using Dave Naples. He's also, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, getting certified in FEMA flood.
Yeah, Dave is going to be certified in a couple of weeks as a FEMA flood counselor, or whatever they call them, but he would be qualified in FEMA flood analysis and interpretation and so forth. So that adds an extra layer of protection for the town.
Keep us posted.
Chief?
Hello, everyone. We've been consistently doing interviews for our seasonals. So far, I have offered 12 conditionals. I have 10 of them that have confirmed so far. I have a few more interviews set up for this month. The goal is to hire 14. We've already started on background investigations and the psych evals. And we're going through all of our equipment and everything, so we're preparing for the season as far as uniforms and everything to see what we need. So we're really ahead of the game on that. We had our accreditation assessment last week. All the auditors, inspectors came, they'd gone through all our policies and procedures, and then came and did an inspection of the building. We won't be approved until the middle of April when the Delaware Police Accountability Committee meets, and they're the ones that will actually, the board has to approve our accreditation. And the week before us was Rehoboth, so Rehoboth and our agency will be approved at the same time in April. And once we're approved, that means we met the state requirements with the law that we had to, the standards. And then the next accreditation will be in 3 years. But every year we have to provide the proofs for the 108 standards. So once we get to April, we'll talk more about that, but it went really well. Everybody did a fantastic job. It took a lot of time to get to that place, so we're very proud of that. Currently working with South Bethany, Ocean View, and Dagsboro on forming an accident reconstruction team. Dagsboro is the lead on this. And the reason being is that the state police had already notified us over a year ago that they're so short-staffed across the state, they won't be able to respond to every agency's request if there's a fatal or a serious injury accident. So that leaves it upon us to get the certified training and to actually handle the reconstructions ourselves. So that's what we're working towards. The other agencies already have certified operators that have already gone through all the levels of training. So our agency has identified 1 to 2 people, and they'll be going to training. It's in Maryland, Office of State Highway. The training is free, and they'll pay for the housing while the officers are there. So it won't be of any cost to us. Also, any equipment needed for accident reconstructions will be taken care of by the grant money from Office of Highway Safety. So it'll just be a great thing for us to have. If we have an injury here, we have a team that will come and they'll handle the reconstruction for us. So that's what we're working towards right now. We have our sergeant's promotional process set up for March 12th is the written exam that the officers have to take. They have to study all kinds of books, and there's about 100 question tests they have to take. And on March 20th, they'll be taking their oral assessment here. There'll be 3 officers from outside agencies asking them questions and doing a review of them. And then based on the best candidate, that's who will be selected to be promoted to sergeant on April 1st. And that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief? All right.
Great job.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to move past the chamber. With that, I'd like to open up the public hearing. The first is a public hearing regarding an application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starbird located 2009 Coastal Highway, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion premise for the following events. 1, opening weekend, St. Patty's Day, to be held March 13th through the 15th, 2026. 29th anniversary of Running the Bull, to be held June 27th, 2026. And the 15th annual Dewey Goes Pink, to be held October 2nd and 3rd, 2026. Anyone here, Ms. Laird, would like to come up? And I mean, we know these, come on up.
Never heard of these events before. What are they?
No?
Yeah.
Never attended?
The 29th Running the Bull? Yeah.
29. Wow.
15th,
Hello, I'm sure you're glad to have a Laird on this side.
Yes.
And not over there.
yes, we are.
Yeah, Monty asked me to be here today. He is reliving his college years up visiting Savannah, so they're having a nice time up there. But yeah, we're very thankful that we get to have these 3 events. I think not only for us, but for the rest of the town. It definitely brings a lot of great people in, a lot of business. So thank you for allowing us to do so. Really appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Laird, Megan Laird?
We hope to see you there.
Hope to.
Thank you.
Where's this place at?
Down the street a little bit. It's
The one with that
It's
shark
going to look a
thing?
lot different.
It'll look a little different by then, but.
Kate, anybody in the waiting room? Okay. I guess we'll close the public hearing on that. We'll open up a public hearing regarding the draft ordinance to amend Chapter 185-46 and Chapter 185, Table 2 of the Municipal Code regarding building height regulations for pre-firm structures in the flood hazard zone. Commissioner Persinger.
Yes, let me get to that one here. Section 185-46 of the code currently waives the existing height standard for a structure that was built before the implementation of the flood insurance rate maps. And this is for a structure that's substantially damaged, that is 50% or more of the value of the structure, and it has to be raised to the specified FEMA and town requirements. This exception has been, this allows an owner of that property to rebuild to the same configuration that exists before the damage, even though it might exceed the current height limitation. This has been in the code since 2015, and it was included when the town did a lot of revisions with respect to the flood insurance provisions within our code, and also some of the zoning requirements too. And it's when they changed the way that the height is calculated from measuring at 35 feet from grade to 32 feet from FEMA plus freeboard. And there was some concern among the people who put this together that there would be some property owners who could be disadvantaged if they were in this situation, had their property damaged, and still wanted to build back to the same configuration that they had before. The problem was that there's kind of a disconnect between that section of the code, section 101, which has all the other flood provisions, and then table 2, our bulk standards table, which sets out the specifics of the height requirements and many other requirements that property needs to meet. So the intent of the changes in the ordinance here, it would amend section 185-46 just to require that if a property owner wants to qualify for this exclusion, they would have to provide some proof via site survey, original building plans, or other appropriate support documenting the height of the undamaged structure. It refers back to the Table 2 bulk zoning standards. It's connected to section 101 because in the situation where you have a property that's in this situation, it's been substantially damaged, it needs to be elevated to meet the requirements. The limitation, it refers to the bulk zoning standards table, Table 2. So all this does is just put the references together to make this a consistent set of procedures that any property owner would have to follow if in fact they were faced with this situation.
Wonderful. Any public comment?
Makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on to item C. Public hearing regarding a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 173 and Chapter 185, Table 2 of the Municipal Code to establish a minimum number of trees required for new construction or redevelopment projects.
Okay, we discussed this issue several months ago, and I think it was largely came up because there were some properties here in town that where they basically took out the existing structure that was there and started from scratch. And those may have been properties that, if they were properties that didn't have any trees, there was no requirement for that property to have trees included once a new structure was put in place there. So this was then referred to the Planning Commission for their recommendations. And they actually went a little bit beyond, I think, what we referred to them, because what they have put together here actually applies to all properties. So that the major change here, 173-1.1, minimum tree requirements. Every lot shall maintain at all times a number of trees equal to or greater than the minimum number of trees, minimum number determined by dividing the total square footage of the lot by the maximum square footage per required tree in Table 2 of the zoning code. So for example, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, you basically have to have 3 trees according to this. You'd have to have 1 tree for every 1,666 square feet of property. And there's some different standards for the RR zone. That's for the NR zone. Different standard, I think it's 2,000, 1 tree for every 2,000 square feet in the RR zone, and somewhat different standard for the other zones as well. The issue, I think, and I've got a couple of comments on this already, is that this applies to every lot. So if you have a residential lot, you don't have any trees, maybe you're built to the, would you be required to add some trees at that point? If you're a commercial property, would there be any space at all available where you would have to add trees under this requirement? So let me leave it there, see if there are any discussion or any questions about what we have so far.
Any questions, council?
So this would apply to every lot regardless of zoning. And what are we trying to accomplish with it? I understand we want to keep trees in town, but there's going to be some lots where that just doesn't make sense.
Well, Commissioner Bersker started by saying that the intent when we sent this to planning zoning was to really look at those lots that there weren't any trees and how to improve the canopy and the green space in the area. It was not, the intent was not to force everyone to put a tree on it, but we can obviously have that conversation.
Yeah, especially commercial properties where they want
Right,
trees.
right.
Marty, want to put one in the new pavilion?
I mean, we could put a nice one. He's not here.
Palm tree or
Figure
something?
it
I
out.
don't know.
Any public comment?
Yes.
Wonderful.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz, full-time resident, Dewey Beach. And the proposed tree ordinance applies to every lot, as I said, including many that are already fully built out and have little or no remaining areas suitable for additional tree placement. And what's even concerning to me, if a structure was damaged or destroyed by like a hurricane or fire or other casualty event, would rebuilding on the same footprint trigger new tree planting requirements, even when there's no space to do so? So then you can't rebuild what you actually have because of the trees. And like, think California, this could really hurt the rebuild. Given the constraints of a small town with many fully developed lots, I think it's best to step back and evaluate how this requirement would actually work in practice. Is there any mock-ups or illustrations to demonstrate what it would be for a typical lot? In the past, the town has showed diagrams of what they would plan to do when it's going to affect every lot. And it's just like, how would this apply to like a fully built out property? My complex, we have no idea. Like the Hyatt, if something happened to the Hyatt, do they then need a bunch of trees? So, I mean, it's not just commercial, it's also like townhomes and mixed use you might have to exempt. So, I mean, I think this should go back to the drawing board and it's not ready because I don't think the public would be happy. I think your intent when this was done was that if someone takes a cottage and tears it down and tries to build a big house, that they should have trees, but not if someone's house gets taken away because of fire or something out of their control, hurricane, and then all of a sudden they have to put a bunch of trees that would stop them from rebuilding.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? All right. With that, we're going to close public hearing and move into the main part of our agenda. Item A, discussion and possible action regarding the application submitted by Stephen Montgomery for the Starboard located at 2009 Coastal Highway, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the following events. Opening weekend, 4 weeks away, St. Patty's Day to be held March 13th through 15th, 2026. The second one, 29th annual running of the Bull to be held June 27th, 2026. 15th annual Dewey Goes Pink 5K to be held October 2nd and 3rd, 2026. We've already heard from Ms. Laird, who represents the Starboard. I'll open up for council. If you would like to have her come up for any questions, or if you need any other information, or if you're okay to move forward.
I'll motion it.
I would motion that we approve the expansion of premises for these events as outlined. They've been positive for the town, and I hope they'll continue to be positive for the town. And I appreciate the Starboard folks bringing it to us early in the year so that we can get all three of them done at one time.
Second,
Second.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That vote passed unanimously. It's much better having you here, Ms. Laird,
I can
versus your
understand.
dad or Monty.
I could understand. Thank you.
Betty's always welcome.
Thanks, Ben.
B, discussion possible action on draft ordinance to amend Chapter 185-46 and Chapter 185, Table 2 of the Municipal Code regarding building height regulation for pre-firm structures and flood hazard areas. As Commissioner Persinger went through it during the opening public hearing, the intent here is to clean that item up. We heard no public comment come through. So if you have any addition that you'd like to,
Nothing else.
may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Also passed unanimously. Discussion and possible action on a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 173 and Chapter 185, Table 2 of the Municipal Code to establish a minimum number of trees required for new construction or redevelopment projects. Commissioner Persinger, I'll let you open up.
Well, I mean, clearly, making this a requirement for every lot is, I think, problematic. I think it should apply to any new construction, certainly, we can make sure that we have some number of trees on each property when there is a full reconstruction. I think, we might also look to some language we've used in the past too. If the property, or if the structure is expanded or added to in some way, I think we could impose this minimum tree requirement on those properties as well. There was a comment earlier about, what happens in the event of a disaster. I think that probably is a question that's going to be difficult to answer for many of the requirements that we have in the code. If we had a hurricane here and you have an existing structure and it has 5 trees on it, would you have to replace those 5 trees if you when you rebuild your structure? I'm not sure that a requirement, even in the situation where there's a disaster, I'm not sure that replacing trees or adding 3 trees if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, I would be surprised that would prevent you from rebuilding your property with the insurance proceeds after a disaster, but I may be wrong about that. But again, I think applying it to totally new construction, an expansion or addition to an existing structure would make sense to apply these minimum tree requirements.
So you'd like to move forward with a potential ordinance in which it's for new construction, like when there's a complete demolition only?
Well, and also if there's an addition or expansion of the structure.
Okay.
That's the same way we have, it's the same language we've used in the green space requirements.
Correct. Commissioner Jasinski.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Persinger, for your work on this. And I appreciate you talking about expansion of premises because in the North End, just so you guys know what's happening, you've got a lot of people who have what they call the beach house model. That's kind of the mid-century modern. That's all on one level. And those kind of are in setbacks. So a lot of people apply for a permit for a renovation when they want to expand it and just kind of try to keep the exterior walls so they can kind of keep their setbacks where they are while they do it. Yet it's really essentially a whole new house. So in cases where people are doing something like that, I definitely think that having a tree requirement is a good thing. We love people kind of trying to preserve the mid-century architecture, of course, and whatnot. But when they're expanding, we've got to get some trees in there if the lots didn't previously have them. So that's pretty good. The the RB1, RB2, and RB3. I mean, I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about it. There's certainly businesses that don't have any trees, but even when you have parking, you can kind of put a little thing and just have a tree kind of in a little little curb thing, in your parking lot. So I don't know that I don't know if it's really too onerous or not. I don't know how other people feel about it.
Commissioner Barrow.
Yeah, I'm okay with the resort residential, the RR district. I think I need to think through for all the other zoning districts too, 'cause I don't know what the unintended consequence of some of that might be. So I think we need to dig deeper into that. But I'm okay if we just want to look at this as for the RR district.
NR or RR?
Or I'm sorry, the NR district, yes.
Okay. But not RR?
Correct, not RR.
Because, why do you?
Well, like a commercial zone, for example, if we put this requirement in and then we find out that, this really isn't working well, and we put an undue ordinance on somebody that, most businesses don't have room.
Well, it's not for existing businesses.
Yeah, but if they remodel it, we don't want to prevent people from doing that because, well, if I remodel, I'm going to have to put a tree in. Bottle Cork has a nice tree in there. Yeah, they do. They took those out years ago.
There are no commercial properties in the RR district.
Okay.
So it's just residential. I guess the only issue there is, does this requirement make sense for condo-type properties.
Well, again, they would have to go through a complete remodeling for, like I think mine,
It would have to be an addition or expansion of the structure.
it's a challenge. I can think of, at least, from obviously challenges to height. Where we are, my wife and I are, we're in a 20 townhouse community that there's nowhere to put trees. And I think Mr. Moskowitz has the same issue. That's it. Yeah.
So this came up. People often say, what is it we're trying to fix? Are we causing problems that
Right.
we don't need to cause? I believe this conversation came up because there was a commercial property that was converted to a residential property. Because it was a commercial property, it had no trees. And now there are going to be houses on this property. And because there were no trees, there's no requirement for there to be trees. So there's going to be this large
Right.
area with residential that will have no trees. And that's what we were trying, I believe that's where
Correct.
this came
Right, that is
from. So
correct.
let's keep that in focus with this.
Which I still believe is a good change or a good addition to our code. So the question is, how do we alter the language so that it's for those situations in which it is a complete tear down? I can't think of many properties that are residential that's a complete tear down that there aren't trees on right now, but I'm sure they exist. But yeah, I'd feel more comfortable with knowing that it was a tear down, that it was a substantial change to the property, more than just a footprint.
What if, since everyone has reservations as we get into the commercial core, what if we just tried to keep this for the NR and RR and include Commissioner Persinger's language that if you're expanding the premises, that then you have to fall under the requirement for trees?
Is there, when you say expanding the premises, can we put in if you're expanding it 2%, or, it should be a significant expansion, right?
We could set a square footage clip level, if you expand it by, 150 square feet or more or something like that. So it's not someone just putting a outdoor shower in, or something, right?
Can I make a
Yeah,
comment,
so-
Mr. Mayor?
Something to think of. We're gonna,
Hold on.
okay.
Mr. Dedes, go ahead.
I just want a clarification. When we say replacement of the trees, are we talking about a certain caliper and height? What are we talking about?
I thought we had language in here that referred back to our tree requirements, but maybe I'm not remembering that correctly. It would not change, let's see, the minimum number. Yeah, I think we have not addressed that, Jim.
There is another one that
It
does.
would be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think if you're going to expand it back, right now, our code says it's got to be a minimum of a 5-inch caliper, and I believe it's 12 feet high if you take down a tree, but we have nothing for the planting of new trees. And that's what I believe we're talking about here, am I correct?
That is correct, yes.
So some
Just a
specificity of what needs to be
clarification, I
planned.
think we should be specific.
Okay. You were saying, Commissioner Barrett?
There's a couple state bills that are coming up that's going to be in conflict with a lot of what we're trying to do here. One is the auxiliary dwelling units, which eliminates our green space part of it, where you're putting another house on your property where you might have a tree. I don't know how that's going to end up being in conflict, but I know state law will trump anything we do on our end. So just be aware of it. So that's coming. Affordable housing and increased density is what the state's trying to push right now for affordable housing. It's contrary to what we're trying to do here, but.
Well, I do think they're going to have a
Whether you agree
challenge
with
with
it or
the
not.
municipalities. I know. Okay.
But the other thing I would suggest, I think it should apply to NR and to RR, but I think we probably need to exclude condominium-type properties.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Jim is correct. I think we need to have something in here that talks about specifications for the trees.
So like the natural occurring, certain sizes, the whole thing that we have in the other tree ordinance.
Refer to our.
Well, it refers back to the other tree ordinance, so I think that's probably a simple fix. We need to get the language right with respect to condominiums. So I guess my suggestion would be that we table this for now, make some changes and come back and consider this at the next meeting.
I'd agree with that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
All right. All right. Item D, review of the January financials. As I'm sure everyone on council has, and anyone who has not looked, please feel free to go to our website. The financials are posted there. As Commissioner Givings had pointed out, we've done really well so far with the transfer tax, and I believe that in conversation I had with Sheena, we're expecting another potentially 100 in February.
150,000.
150,000 in February. So we're exceeding the amount. So as we get into the budget conversation, it kind of solidifies our potential increase now. But right now for the public, what we had budgeted of $5,805,000, we're at $6,795,000 in terms of gross revenue. Our net operating budget performance after expenditures and set-asides, we're at $1,010,000 versus $414,000, or $595,000 better than we had originally budgeted. So the town is doing very well financially. But please feel free to go to those details and to go through them and understand them. Any questions of Ms. Hall from council?
Nice job, Sheena. I know that was a lot of work.
And a quick turnaround, thank you.
Commissioners, there was a question that came up in the budget, or in the finance committee, that just about 5 minutes ago, I got the answer to, and I wanted to share it with you. The question was about the parking ticket revenue that we've received over the years. And it was being compared, the revenue that came in. And I said that we needed to compare the number of tickets. In 2020, there were, after voids, 3,356 tickets written. Jump to 2023, 2 years into town manager's term, or 1 year, 2 years. We're up to 2023, we're at 7,619. Last year, 12,343 tickets after the voids. So not the revenue went up, but it's because the tickets, because of the employees we had, wrote far more tickets. Hopefully this year, the education that was shared last year will benefit the visitors this year.
Who's going to be smarter?
The
hope.
Budget Finance
really.
Committee was appreciative of the parking ambassadors' efforts, but was quite certain that we didn't want to make our town budget based on parking tickets.
Correct.
Sure, that's correct.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall. Any other questions for Ms. Hall on the financials? Okay. Moving on to item E, discussion possible action on resolution to amend the fiscal year 2026 budget. I have asked, I'll take this for Ms. Hall real quick. As we looked at this, I felt, and I probably should have amended this from the agenda, but I was out of town and we didn't have a lot of time. We're going to put a process in 2027 so that on a monthly basis, we're going to be able to track what would be an amendment and why it's an amendment. For example, if a grant was received by the police department and ultimately had additional expenditures capital, seeing that line item, what that means. The conversations that I had with the town is that this isn't necessarily a way for us to match actual to budget. It should be based upon items that we didn't truly anticipate, and that for like donations or grants, et cetera. So I'm going to ask that we do not have an amendment to the budget, but I can open up for conversation among council.
I generally agree with that. I guess where I'm hesitating a little bit is thinking in terms of grants. I think if we apply for a grant, we don't have an expenditure until we actually get the grant. So it's, in that sense, it's not unexpected revenue.
We may not have the cash, but we'll have the grant receipt, the grant documentation. So we'd be spending operating cash without the receipt. We don't track the receivables.
Right, but that's not, I don't see amending the budget for that. I mean, I think about amending the budget The need to amend the budget is if something goes wrong in terms of the operating expenditures of the town. Our revenue is short. Our normal streams of revenue was short for some reason, or much higher than we expected, or there's certain expenditures within the operating budget that there's an increase for some particular reason, and therefore expenditures are much higher. I would think about amending the budget in that kind of context rather than in the context of grants. But
Yeah.
I don't think we need to try to sort that out. But
I think this is in our first year last year going through the amendment process, we pushed through and had budget match actual. And I don't know if that was completely we were trying to be transparent and we were trying to match it, but I don't think that was the overall intent. What I'm hoping is that through fiscal year 2027, we track that and we're able to understand what each of those means.
So,
Commissioner Zutzke?
yeah, so my take on it is, I feel like when we amend the budget, that sometimes we're losing sight of what the original target was, and now there's like a new target. And sometimes, I do think it's important through the year. A lot of times we cause the increased spending, because we just decide to vote that we want to do something that wasn't in the budget. So that's, on us. And then other times there's something unexpected, like, the police cars or whatever, needing major repairs or replacement. So I get all that, but I do think we can't do a process where we lose sight of how far we are off our original target. And that's, I want everyone to be compliant, but I just don't want us to lose sight of what the original target was.
So is there a way to have our town budget with things that go in and out? And then I'm going to use the wrong term, but like a shadow budget that's grants in and money's out related to grants. So it doesn't muddy the town budget, because this is a separate.
I know I can see what you're trying to accomplish, and I think what we should probably do is in addition to going through the financial statements for the next few months and into next year, see what we can do to make it happen, to make it clear. I mean, I do think we've come a long way in terms of the financial reporting, in terms of the summary and the operating and the pullouts and the how things are affected in the different funds and fund balances, and I think it's just an additional step. So it's very clear to us why we're having a budget amendment.
Commissioners, the new ERP system, once Edmunds is fully implemented, it will be able to track everything far greater than QuickBooks and spreadsheets ever had. So you will have, Chief will be able to ask me what exactly is in this line item, and I'll be able to tell her. I'll be able to tell you what grant has been approved, how much has been spent on it, what line items it's affected. Everything will flow much quicker.
And based on my conversations with Ms. Saul, we do have it two different ways. We do have it where we get a grant, we get the funds, and then we spend money over a period of time, or we do get the grant and we spent the money and we have to wait for the reimbursement, wait for the funds to come in. So creating that receivable payable, creating that balance is going to be a requirement, and hopefully Evans will be able to do that. Okay. Any other questions from any other questions about the budget amendment process? Okay. Move on. F, discussion of possible action to draft ordinance to amend chapter 93-5, 158 of the municipal code regarding parking rates and the hours during which parking fees are in effect. W. Stevens. So, this is the intent to basically take what, as part of the budget process for us for the fiscal year 2027, look at those categories that require changes to our code. What we're looking for this conversation today and possible change in the ordinance is to change the hours of which parking starts, and it's purely to take it from 10 to 9 a.m. and leaving the back end so what you see on the website will be altered for that, but it's just to take it to the 9 a.m. At this time. With that, any questions from the public? The e-public, nothing?
And this change was proposed based on some work that the town staff did to see when we might have some revenue coming in. And 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. there was a lot of parking in town. The midnight to 2 a.m. is less of an issue, but we can keep it that way because that's what it has been. But 9 to 10 will help us.
Any other conversations with council on this? May I get a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item is discussion and possible action on draft ordinance to amend Chapter 93.5 and 158 of the municipal code regarding parking rates. I'm sorry. But we didn't talk about the rates also. I mean, I just want to make sure that's clear. I apologize on that.
Part of it, what we just approved.
I know, but I want to make it clear that everybody, Fred, I wanted to make it clear from the minutes that not only I thought this was in two separate elements. The first one is that we're changing it to 9 a.m. from 10 a.m., but the other thing is that some of the rates have changed.
Those are
The weekly
included in
rates.
the attachment, yes.
Yeah,
So we don't need to do anything else, is that?
I was clear.
All right, okay. G, discussion possible action on a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 117 of the municipal code regarding license fees. If you review the ordinance, this was an attempt to do a few different things. One is for residential property rentals with the support of our accommodation, is to increase that from 188 to 250 as the base fee, and the per room on the first, per room from 15 to 20, as well as changing the motels and hotels from 503 to 520, and changing the rates from $29 to $31. Food and beverage establishments going from 359 to 520, and per seat charge going from 10 to 13. All of these things combined will obviously improve our financials as we move forward. It's not too gregarious, at least from my position in terms of either residential, the motels, or the food and beverage. For small establishments, for fire marshals, that establish occupancy under 35 people, that rate will go from $10 to $13 per person. If you continue to look at the ordinance, one of the things that we tried to eliminate was the small in-town versus small out-of-town, large in-town versus large out-of-town, and just refer to the businesses as small and large and put them to the same rate and not have the difference. In this situation, small business not classified above 1.4 would go from 359 to 260. Large business not classified above 5 or more would go to 503 to 520. The small out of town would go away, as I said, and large out of town would also go away. And again, just be combined and not have to worry about whether they're in or out on the same rates. Any questions concerning, anyone from public comment on that? Any questions of council? Hearing, is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the next element of the agenda is discussion and possible action on a resolution to approve the fiscal 2027 budget. Ms. Hall.
I want to thank both the mayor and Commissioner Persinger for their help on everything. Every year it gets easier. Is the finance committee, liked everything that we presented? Is there any questions? I've got some. I can tell you that our revenues were projected to go up 8% over last year. We're projecting our overall expenses only to go up 6%. And the majority of that is in salaries.
Right.
Employee obligation.
Employee obligation, yeah.
Yeah.
Which employee obligation is salary, pension, taxes, workers' comp, all the things that make sure our employees are happy, healthy, and safe.
Yeah. Total employee cost.
Any questions for Ms. Hall on the budget preparation?
No, I mean, I hope everybody's comfortable with what we're projecting. The big one that we talked about the other night was the transfer tax, because we bumped up what our budget is, only because we've been exceeding it. I think, remember we were talking a couple meetings ago about the median amount of what transfer tax is. Once we take out those COVID years where we just had exceptional revenues coming in, if we take that out of it, I mean, and just look at it like those years didn't happen, but look at that curve and everything's just going up. What's our final number we're gonna hit this year?
I've received notice that in January, the transfers will give us roughly 150,000, which puts us at roughly 932,000 so far for the year. With February and March, any sales that happen, we should hit $1 million again,
Yeah.
which is unbelievable.
And the year before, we were what, 1.1?
Mhm.
So when we keep projecting 700 and you're almost 150% of that number, or 130%, it's amazing that we can continue to sell the same number of properties, but everything just costs twice as much. So that's how we keep hitting those numbers. Good problem to have.
Any questions from the public?
To be clear, this is to approve the budget as a whole, not just these specific recommendations.
Good, Commissioner Presser.
So I think it's important to realize kind of where we are and where we're projected to be, at least, for the end of this year, as well as what this budget projects net performance at for next year. And if you look at there were 2 or 3 different versions of the budget that were posted. If you look at the one that was approved by the Finance Committee, which has a revised summary that Sheena and I talked about last Monday, just before the Finance Committee meeting. The projection here is that based on the budget for FY27, the expenditures and revenues, there would be a surplus of $155,722. That's obviously a good thing. There's a summary below that net figure in the budget that looks at what we will have left over basically from this current fiscal year. And projecting that over the next 2 months, over February and March, well, we're already in February obviously, but over those last 2 months, we will operate at a deficit, which is not surprising because the income is mostly front-loaded in terms of our fiscal year. The town will operate at a deficit of about $312,000. So when you take that into account and what we need to satisfy the requirements under our fund balance policy for both the rainy day fund and the unassigned fund, that leaves us with a significant surplus for this year projected surplus as of 3/31/26 of $634,232. That's obviously a good thing as well. One of the comments that I made at the last meeting about our fund balance policy and the rainy day fund and the unassigned fund and how we meet those requirements is that we made a change several months ago in that policy so that we have a target that we need to move toward. What we've been doing so far is taking a look at coming up with a budget and then relying on surplus from the previous year to satisfy the fund balance requirements for that next year. That's obviously leaving things to serendipity, which I think is not a good idea. We agreed to change the fund balance policy so that we would set as a target for the coming year, say for FY27, so that by the end of FY27, we would have in there the required amounts for both the rainy day fund and the unassigned fund. And we would get there by making regular contributions to the rainy day fund throughout the coming fiscal year. We have an opportunity now to do that. We have surplus money. We have $155,000. We also have the surplus from the end for fiscal year 26. And I had a proposal. Can you pull that up, Kate? Would you mind? I'm told that you do have that available. I've shared this with the town manager and also with the mayor, but not generally with all the other commissioners. The idea is to take advantage of that $155,722 and use that to fund the rainy day fund in FY27, at least partially fund it. And you would do so by taking a percentage of parking meter revenues, which are projected to be, I believe, 1.285 million this year, and take that and also take out of the budget at this point, an allocation of $15,000 that we've allocated to the comp plan. And in doing so, that would, if we took, just move down to the summary, just a little bit further. If we took 13.3% of parking meter revenue, put that to the rainy day fund, that would bring that contribution to that fund at 170,722. We would have wiped out the surplus at that point, so the budget would be balanced. And then from the FY26 surplus of 634,231, we would take $45,000 for a new comp plan fund. That would be a new set-aside fund. The comp plan is something we have to do every 10 years. It's really more of a special project than it is something that should be a burden on our operating expenses. That would allow us to fund a consultant to help us put that plan together and also fund any contingencies. As a set-aside fund, the money wouldn't go away if we decided not to spend it. It would still be there. We could reallocate it to other uses if that became necessary. But that, in my mind, is the best way to treat that expenditure. There would still need to be $11,500 that would come from the FY26 surplus to fully meet the year-end requirement for FY27. You would leave $55,000 in the unassigned fund to satisfy the FY27 year-end requirement. And then, once those deductions have been made, there would still be $522,731 available for capital expenditures, for the town hall, or for other uses as we might determine. The assumptions we're making here, can you go back up to the top just for a second? The assumptions, first of all, are that just a little bit further. No, I guess that was what I was thinking. The assumption here is first of all that the projected surplus for FY26, 634,231 is a reasonably sound estimate. All indications are that is the case, and that the draft FY27 budget surplus of 155,722 is not affected by any changes to the draft. I haven't heard any changes suggested other than the one that I had about taking $15,000 out and then funding that comp plan with money from the FY26 surplus. So again, I think that gives us reasonable consistency with our fund balance policy requirements. It bakes into the budgeting process a way of meeting the rainy day fund requirements in the future. Next year, if for this year we've allocated 13.3% of parking meter revenues to that rainy day fund, we can adjust that percentage as necessary in the budget to follow to meet the requirements for FY28. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope that was not too confusing. I'm sure you have lots of questions.
Go ahead.
So for those of you that are following along at home and not sure where this is the first H on your agenda. So you can look at it in detail there. The other thing to make clear, some of the folks on the Finance Committee were confused by the $634,000 number being in red. It is truly a surplus, even though it's in red, it is a surplus.
Wrong color.
And the 155.
And the 155,722 is also not a deficit, but a surplus.
And which of the draft budgets on here is the?
So you should be looking at the one that says
Finance Committee
Okay,
approved.
Finance Committee approved.
Yeah.
And the first H was what he just put up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I understand, if I put everything that you just said, Commissioner Persiker, in a bucket, I think the one change here to the budget, as I'm hearing it, is to eliminate the comp plan line item for 15,000 because we're going to deal with that as the self-committed funds from the 2026 surplus, but then to put in a set-aside amount to fund the rainy day based upon the parking fees. What you've put in there is 13.3%. I love those not full numbers. That so
I mean,
He does this
you
just
can
for you.
adjust that.
can we just call it 12 and just
12's light, I think. You won't get there with 12.
I guess I was looking at it.
It's Friday the 13th.
You're gonna round down and round
All right, 13. So we'll
It's
put
either
in,
14 or
so
13.
the amendment as proposed removing the comp plan of $15,000 and creating a set aside of 13.0% for the rainy day fund based upon the parking meter revenue of $1,250,000.
1285.
1285.
Yeah.
And then everything else we'll look at in terms of the allocations of,
I believe that is correct. I got my son in front of me. Everything else comes out of the surplus.
correct.
Yeah.
So those are the only two changes for this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fine with those two small changes.
Okay.
I got a question.
Yeah.
How much do we have in a rainy day fund now?
We have 2,938,847.93.
3 million?
Almost 3 million.
Okay. I mean, one day we'll look like a genius when it really does rain and we need to spend it, but it's the point that this fund's getting pretty.
It's, you know, it is,
Pretty
and if
dense.
anything happens, and, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, we've talked about is to, you know, understand when those levers get pulled and how we're gonna get pulled. And, you know, in this situation where the superstorm Sandy happens and we don't have revenue, and we have no parking, and we have no, and we still wanna maintain our staff as we get through that process and what we're gonna need to operate. That's the true
You
point
have
of
to
the
be
rainy
right
day.
once.
So,
Yeah, and my only thought on that is, should we look at, instead of, I know we look at it as percentages, should we look at an annual contribution amount as opposed to a percentage? You know, do we need to put, you know, $500,000 in there a year, 200,000, whatever the number is?
it truly comes, I think when Commissioner Persinger originally worked on this, it's like, how long would it take us to be up and running, back up and running, again, assuming no revenue is coming in?
Right.
And since most of our, 65% of our budget is based upon payroll and people related, it's just a way to make sure that we have those funds captured. And we're very fortunate. I know conversations with the auditors, you know, this is it's a great thing that we have this reserve in case we ever need it. Most towns, I think Sheena was, what Dan had said is 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at 6 months. So we're protecting the town's funds. So with this part of the agenda to approve the 2027 budget, with the creation of the set aside at 13.0% and removing of the 15,000 comp plan, can I,
Motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Discussion possible action on draft.
Just in terms of the other allocations for, how do we handle that?
Capital expenditures.
So
I
we'll,
mean, do come back with a motion for the
we're
next
gonna,
meeting?
yeah, we're gonna have another, because we need to get a capital expenditure budget done, and then we'll also look at, because the intent was prior to us sending anything to the auditors, that the fund balances would be at the levels that they need to be at year end, because we made that mistake last year, but where does the unassigned fund need to be, where does the capital improvement need to be, what does the rainy day fund need to be, so then we'll see that in the financial statements.
But just to be clear, what needs to be in the rainy day fund and the unassigned fund is exactly what we started with. Because we changed the policy.
Correct.
Okay, just, all right.
All right, discussion of possible action as on a draft ordinance to amend chapter 167, article 2 of the municipal code to adjust the beach assessment tax rate following Sussex County property tax reassessment. This again is something we've talked about a few months ago, is bringing up to the current assessments that have gone on here in town. As all of us know, we were reassessed, and that those will continue, those reassessments will continue. I believe is it every 3 years that they're gonna do it? Paul, do you remember, or is it
5,
perpetual?
but yeah, I mean, they started again 3 years after they finish it.
So the key here is, like, if your property is $1 million, and, you know, this is the rate that you're gonna pay towards the beach fund. And if it goes up to 1.1, this multiplier is what's gonna go towards the beach fund. We have, as you can see from the draft here, the tax rate shall be 0.0111 per 100 of the assessed value, based upon the most recent rates, values that have been determined. Roughly, if I remember correctly, our town of Dewey Beach is valued at $1.8 million, or $1.8 billion when you look at overall the total properties. So that gets us right to where the contribution that we currently have. The 0.1111, even though I wanted 0.1. Any questions from the town concerning this proposed change? Kate, anyone online concerning this proposed change? I'll open up to council for questions.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the way this is drafted in terms of the second sentence of that paragraph that talks about the town council or commissioners may by majority vote may increase the rate of an aggregate, wording's awkward, of 20% in the original tax rate. Any tax rate change or changes exceeding 20% in the aggregate of the original tax rate shall require approval by referendum. The original formulation of this, there's a specific percentage per $100 of the 1992 assessed value. That's a specific set number. Now you're opening up, half of the equation here, so that the way this is drafted, in 3 or 5 years, whenever there's a new assessment, then that 0.0111 would apply to that new assessment, and
Correct.
presumably that would count toward the 20%. in the
Well,
aggregate?
that I read this, when I put this through, is that the town council could go higher than 0.0111 by up to 20%.
That's how I read it too.
Of a specific value, the 1992 assessed value. That's-
Correct.
No, the
But
most
now,
current
now,
assessment.
now
The
I-
most current assessment.
well,
So if you're,
but you're opening it up. Even if you don't change the 0.0111 and there's a reassessment, those assessments go up and you're going to collect more money than you're collecting now. And I'm not
So-
sure that, unless you count that toward the 20% increase in the aggregate, then I'm not sure you're satisfying that second.
so would you be more comfortable if we passed a motion today that just tied the 0.111 per 100 on the assessed value without,
Well, I'd say to the 2025 assessed value. Then if there's a reassessment, we go through the same
we can go through the
process.
same
We can
process?
change it again.
And but when this was drafted, the intent was that it may move as your property gets reassessed. Because I believe, Kate, we get a new value every year from the county for the properties, and to apply that to the 0.111, we could just easily,
Wait a minute, we get a new value for each property every year?
So we would get numbers from Sussex County each year that we have to do our billing for beach tax. So in the event someone did a whole new project on a piece of property, they would have a new assessment for that property in particular. I think that was the intention of wording it this way.
So that we
Your assessment may not be based on 2025. Maybe you build something in 2026 and it's gonna be based off of that number.
so if there's a tear down, kind of what, Commissioner Jazinski was talking about, if one of the cottages that's valued at $400,000 gets torn down and put a $2 million home up with 5 bedrooms, et cetera, well, that new $2.2 million number that comes through to the town is what the tax rate is applied to, not the old number for prior to the.
And is that different than it has been in the last, okay. Well, all right, that's fine, but then, let's say they do a reassessment of all properties, right? In 3 or 5 years, whatever, let's say 5 years. And on average, everything goes up by 10%.
I think we find ourselves right back out doing the same thing, to make sure that that rate is not egregious to anyone, and that the 0.11 may be 0.0888263.
So we're,
Like adjusting the rate down.
Yeah, but the problem is we're not writing it that way. We're just saying the most recent assessment. So if they do a new assessment, we could just go ahead and charge everybody 0.0111 of that new assessed value, even if that's 10% higher. Or if it's, property values go crazy and it's 20% higher.
Right.
And, but then we've already used up that 20% increase in the aggregate.
I would not be opposed of eliminating that 20% cushion that we have in that language and just tie it to 0.111 of the tax assessed value and have us review that on a regular basis to make sure that we're not going too far ahead of where we want it to be from the beach assessment.
So taking out the other two
Too far ahead of
sentences.
that limitation, you're saying?
Well, we haven't increased the 20%. We haven't used that 20%.
Yeah, but my point is that 0.4 per 100 of the 92 assessed value, that whole thing is the rate. It's not just the 0.4.
So
That's
if
my
I could suggest something?
Sure, David.
Sure. So what Commissioner Person is getting at is he wants, you're looking to have the legislation or the ordinance structured so that taxes are always revenue neutral unless we take an affirmative action to make them not revenue neutral in the aggregate. Is that kind of your objective? Is that they always stay revenue neutral?
My objective is not to violate that second sentence without a referendum. That's my only concern.
Yeah. Even if we took out the last two sentences, if we change the rate to 0.0111, when the next reassessment happens, unless we take affirmative action, the taxes are not going to be revenue neutral, right? They're going to go up with the assessment, assuming the assessment goes up.
Right.
So I guess what I'd say is the only way to do that is to actually put a sentence in that when the assessed values change, the rate will be recalculated to be in the aggregate revenue neutral and eliminate the last two sentences.
But that is assuming you're tying that to only when the state does their reassessment on a 3 or 5 year period.
Correct.
But in the situation in which a tear down worth 500,000 becomes worth $1 million, my thought here is that the rate would, what you pay on your property would go up consistent with the value of your property.
Right. How about we do language that's a little more precise on my part? We eliminate the last two sentences and we change it. We add a sentence that says, in the event that there is a town-wide reassessment, this rate will be recalculated to be aggregate revenue neutral in the aggregate.
I like that language.
It's fine, it just doesn't give you any flexibility for increasing right now we could increase it by 20%. If we didn't change anything, we were still using the 92 assessed value, we could have a rate of 0.48 per 100 of the 92 assessed value.
We could.
So with your language though, you eliminate any possibility of an increase in the rate.
The establishment of the 0.111 gets us to a relatively revenue neutral number. And I think what David is saying is that we would have to come back here and determine another rate to continue to have that revenue neutral or a different target.
Well,
next year, because the reality is that, we don't, if beach replenishment, the purpose of this, we don't know what it's going to cost. In the future, and it does go up.
Okay, I guess what I'm looking for is a rate that's tied to the 2025 assessed value. And if a complete reassessment takes place, as we've just experienced, then at that point, we would revisit the rate. It would still give us the opportunity to change the point.
Yeah, I just don't think that's fair to the homeowners who haven't put $1 million into their new property because they're paying at a lower rate. So if I had a tear down that was valued at $400,000 in 2025, and now it's worth $1.4 million, I'm still paying at that lower rate, even though my neighbor is now paying at the higher rate.
Because you're tying it to the last
Right.
countywide.
Versus what we get as the valuation rule.
Well, I guess it comes back to what's happening now. We've been using the 92 assessed value. So if someone tears down a house, they build a new property, it's worth $1.5 million. The original was worth 200. What are we getting from the county? Are we getting, what I thought I heard you say is we were getting a new assessed value from the county, and that's the value that's used, and you've been applying the 0.4 per 100 to that to determine the tax rate for that property. So all I'm saying is...
Don't they adjust it down, though, back to a 1992 value through some kind of a formula?
I understand it.
No? Okay, well, that's what they do in the other counties. They had like an adjustment at the last minute for that situation. They turned the clock all the way back to like 1978.
Yeah, well, you could deflate the $2,025 back to 1992, but if they're not doing that, my point is, if we're doing what I think I understand you're saying is that changing this to the 2025 assessed value doesn't change what we're doing already. And we would only change this formula if in fact we get a complete reassessment by the county as we've just experienced.
And the only thing I'm saying is that if we don't tie it to the 2025 and we just tie it to the tax assessed values that come across to the town, then we are correcting any understatements that may have occurred due to new construction, and using that as an example.
But then I don't know how we satisfy the last, I don't think we can drop the last two sentences because we're talking about a referendum here. We can't just say, oh, we're gonna just do something different and then we don't have to worry about, a referendum.
Fred, what's your interpretation of that?
Well, I mean, we're lowering the rate by a massive amount, right?
Right.
So the prohibition against raising the rate 20% higher than 0.4 times 100 of the 92 assessment is never going to come into play. You're never going to be increasing the rate higher than it was in 1992 because you've lowered it by so much.
Yep. You've
Am I on the wrong point?
lowered the percentage per 100, but my argument was that whole phrase there, 0.4 per 100 of the 1992 assessed value, that is the rate, including the 1992 assessed value. That's a fixed number, as is the percentage. So, if you alter the second part of that and just go to whatever the assessment is that you get from the county, then you have a far different equation.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think we're hurting anybody by tying it to the assessed values. I really don't. Because I think what we're doing is we're putting everybody on the same playing field so that somebody's not being hurt more than somebody else. You have $1 million house, I have $1 million house. You and I should contribute the same amount to the beach fund. That's by
I
tying it to
understand
the
that,
rates.
but we have that inequity now. You're trying to fix that.
Correct.
And that's fine with me. The only thing I'm worried about is that those last two sentences and not running into a situation where someone says, well, you've let this thing get out of control. And it may not be now or next year or 3 years from now. We're trying to write code that works, for enough.
Well, the referendum here is only if the council try to exceed the rate by 20%. So if we try to go up 21% off the old, when that was established, council had the ability to go from 40 to 42, 44, 46.
Per 100 of the 92 assessed.
Would it
values, a
help?
fixed number.
Would it help if sentence 2 said the commissioners of Dewey Beach by majority vote may increase the rate of an aggregate of 20% of 0.4 per 100 of the 1992 assessed value?
But the 1990, I understand how it fits into a formula, but that's not a rate. The 1992 assessed value is not a rate.
It's part of the rate. It is part of the rate. It has to be.
The rate is 4 per 100. And it has to be of something.
It does.
It happens to be of the 92 assessed value. Now we have a new assessed value, and the rate is much lower. The rate is 0.1.
Again, it comes down to what do you consider the rate? And I believe 92 assessed value is part of the rate. So
So you think the
I'm not
original
sure.
tax rate is the 92?
This is what?
The original tax rate referred to in sentence 2 is the 1992 assessed value.
That's part of it, yes. That's part of the original tax rate.
Yeah, I would say it's part of your bill, but it's not part of your rate.
Okay.
All right, so the intent was to get us current, back out of 1992. The conversations, and you and I have both worked on this, is coming up with a rate of 0.111 times tax assessed value. I think if we were if you wanted to keep some element of protection to the public out there, then we can keep the 20% increase off of that 0.111, because we always can come back and change that at any point in time. But I do believe that if there's a significant change in the value of your home, you should pay more or pay less based upon the value that's
fair.
dictated, and not just tied to what it is in 2025.
I get that. I understand.
So the public understands we're taking it from 4 pennies to 1 penny. So it's 40 per 100. It's clouds what everybody's like, oh, look, they're raising rates. Now we're taking it from 4 pennies to 1 penny.
When we looked at this, it was immaterial to 99% to change. There were a few that were outliers that either weren't paying enough, and now they're going to pay the right amount, or we're paying too much, and now they're paying the right amount. So this correction is correcting.
Yeah. Guys, I think we're getting a little wrapped around the axle on this. I mean, it's a revenue neutral proposal that's just kind of, handling a dramatic change in the assessed values of the things, and it's revenue neutral in the aggregate, so.
For this, do we have public comment, Catherine?
Catherine?
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz. Just a point of clarification, like it does have to be revenue neutral by state law. State law also requires the county to reappraise properties every 5 years. So this in 2028, this whole process has to be completed. But between the 5 years, if a town was to conduct its own appraisal outside that cycle for a property that gets built, the cost of doing so would likely exceed any additional revenue generated, and it would be wasteful. So it would make sense, because if you're using a 2023 property prices, it would make sense to be using that and do it consistently, and in 5 years reevaluate. I mean, that seems I believe what the town has done in the past. Thanks.
For the general public, we're no intention of going in and reassess property values. This is taking what Sussex County provides us, multiplying our rate, sending out the beach fund. So
If we do nothing, your tax bill will go up 4 times,
No.
right? 44 cents to 1 cent.
Let me just be, just bottom line for me. My preference would be to revise this so that we would simply replace the two words, the 1992, we would replace it with the 2025. And then as determined by Sussex County. That would be my preference, if that's not, the preference for the rest of the council.
My understanding is that would then lock everything into 2025, and if any improvements were made on properties in 2026 or 2027, they would not pay an increased tax rate.
Well, they would, because they'd be getting something different from the.
But it wouldn't be the
But if we lock
2025,
in
it would be
2025.
26,
But that's exactly what happens now with the 92.
which is, we're fixing both things.
But I'm not sure you can do that. And not, I'm really worried about the aggregate. Okay, I prefer my change. No, I'm just saying, I prefer my change. If you want to go ahead with your change, I probably will abstain, because I'm not sure how your change relates to the second 2 paragraphs, or second 2 sentences.
Well,
And
I think it
the need
does,
for a
because
referendum.
what it does, by us is changing the .111 to the point, from the .40, and we base it on the most recent assessment by Sussex County and keep it in there. What that stops us from doing is, even if we left the 20% in there, and referendum in there, we can't randomly change that .111 based upon the assessed value more than 20%. What we're doing is correcting it right now, but then also tying it to the current values.
And I believe that 20%, you can't just simply increase the .0111 by 20%. Because of the difference in the property values.
Well, we
think
could, based upon how it exists right now.
It's an aggregate. If we're talking about the aggregate of the original tax rate, we clearly have a disagreement over what the tax rate, the phrase tax rate means. So, if you prefer your language, then go ahead and consider that. If there are votes for that, go ahead. I will abstain, because I'm not clear that that satisfies those second 2 sentences, but that's okay.
Good question. When do the tax bills need to go up? Catherine?
I believe Laura sends them out end of April.
Yeah.
We could have time to work on our language in March, or unless we can come up with.
I like how it's been proposed to keep it to the current assessed values. It takes into consideration, it fixes for the issues that we currently have. It keeps the guardrails in for the 20% that we can't just randomly change the .11. It becomes revenue neutral. And in case there's a major change to somebody's property, it captures that in terms of making sure that it's an equal balance. And then in 5 years, or whenever the next tax assessment happens, we can again reevaluate what that number is.
is.
Okay.
Yeah. David, what was your language? You did 2 sentences, you wanted to?
Yeah, I did, but thinking it through, I like the mayor's approach better, and I think that we just need to have faith that whether the assessment happens in another 3 years or another 5 years, there's going to be a set of commissioners around, and they're going to look at it, and they're going to make a determination if they're going to change the tax rate, or if they're not. I mean, you kind of have faith in that the people are elected and they're going to do the right thing. You know?
Okay. Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Can I add, I understand where Mr. Persinger is coming from, because I think the sentence is.
We already voted, Fred.
Good, that's good. But I think it's confusing the way it's
Keep us
stated.
out of trouble later.
It should just have a period after after assessed value, and then should go on to say that the bill is determined by, there should be a distinction between the rate and the
The
bill.
intent of the ordinance was to tie them to the current rates and to get a new rate out there and revenue neutral. If you and Kate decide that there should be commas, periods, colons, semicolons somewhere, please feel free
All
to
right.
make it grammatically correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't need to amend the motion on that?
No, not based on anything
I'm
that I.
sorry.
All right. I was ready to amend if we need
All
to.
right, no. J, discussion possible action on a resolution to approve an amended contract with Chief of Police, Mr. Zolper.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Constance Speak has been with us 3 years. Remember the process we went through to make her the chief of the town. We are very lucky to have her. She works nights, she works weekends, she works holidays. And the improvement in the police department is nothing short of amazing. And that was by Captain Warren's assessment from the 2019 to the 2025. So what are we asking for? We're asking for an increase of $125,000 a year, with a 5% increase every fiscal year, which would be on April 1st of every year. And we're asking for continued benefits. If you look at the police chiefs in the surrounding area, we still are not at the level of those when it comes to salary to those chiefs that are in the area. Those chiefs that are in the area, they have a tough job, but I put that against our summer nights here, especially in the months of June when we have the June bugs, July, St. Patrick's Day, in those nights that we had. So I think this is, $125,000 and a 5% increase every fiscal year, and we continue the benefits is what we should look at and vote on this evening.
Any questions of Mr. Zolper?
Remind me the length of the contract, please?
3 years.
3 years?
3 years.
My brain just stopped. I appreciate it.
I have no questions, but I'll open up for anyone here as part of the town council meeting.
You have a comment?
Okay, wonderful.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz, full-time resident, and automatic raises of this magnitude are not consistent with sound public sector governance. Salary increases would be guaranteed each year without being tied to any annual performance evaluations, measurable outcomes, or prevailing economic conditions. And it's when you give a police chief a raise of 5%, even if the contract expires, we were told by the town solicitor, it continues. So it's basically 5% for the rest of her life. It cannot be reduced afterwards, we were told in the past. In the past, police chiefs have been given 3%, but never 5%. The town should have learned the issue when they had the previous town manager who had a thing in his contract that he would get the largest raise of any employee, and it caused lots of issues. You're going to be going into a union negotiation. If you're giving her 5%, every employee will be expecting 5% every year. And once senior leadership compensation is placed on autopilot, it becomes increasingly difficult to credibly deny, like any treatment to other employees. And you should revise it so that any salary increase is determined annually by town council based on documented performance and prevailing economic conditions. Who's to say she doesn't deserve 8 or 10% one year? But you're fairly compensating. My issue is not with the 125, which is a 25% increase over the last few years, and you have Lieutenant Dempsey would be ready to step in. You had 40 applicants for her position. My issue is with the 5%, and you're just setting an example where every employee will be asking for 5% now for every year, and the town cannot afford that.
Thank you. Anyone else, Catherine? Kate? Council, comments?
You know, I think the way the contract's written, I mean, we obviously still have performance reviews and, you know, metrics that the chief standards are based on. So I don't have any issues with how it is. I mean, obviously, you know, if chief would do a poor job, which would never happen, but, yeah, I think we're splitting hairs on it, but.
I agree. I do think there's, you know, similar to 4 or 5 years ago when we all got together as part of this group, you know, we took a direct action to try to improve every area where we were consistently underpaying people in their positions. When I look around at the other chiefs in the area, I realize there are different sized police departments, different sized towns, and this is just moving up to what I believe to be a fair wage for what she does. And to your point, Commissioner Bauer, no, I don't, you know, people are who they are. And I don't, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
So,
David wanted to talk.
David?
I just wanted to say, I mean, her performance warrants this. So, you know, this, for me, this should be a no-brainer.
Agreed.
Then why don't you make a motion?
Okay, a motion, we approve the contract.
And I'll second that.
Any other conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you,
Chief.
Thank you for all you do.
All right, K. All right, discussion possible action on draft ordinance to amend Chapter 138 Municipal Code to revise requirements of property maintenance to establish penalties for violations. Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, these are the same set of standards that we talked about at the last meeting. Actually talked about this at a couple of different meetings. This is a shortened version of the ones that we talked about 2 meetings ago, I believe it was. They're just the same standards that are now put into an ordinance format. I think it's important to note that, you know, these are minimum standards. They're intended to be fair, protect the public. They're not intended to dictate personal taste. And you know, I think there's a core purpose here is really to prevent harm, whether you're talking about, you know, actual physical harm from something like, you know, harboring rodents on your property, but certainly to make sure that we preserve property values. No one wants to put, you know, a lot of money into their own property and be next door to a particular property that has not been well taken care of and, you know, has some depressing value or depressing force on the value of your property. It's really, we're trying to prevent harm. It looks at, you know, fire hazards, trying to prevent fire hazards, pest and vermin infestations, drainage and stormwater problems, unsafe or unsanitary conditions. Again, any kind of deterioration that depresses surrounding property values. And it's really a matter, I think, of fairness to have something like this. The only thing I want to point out is that I left in the draft here that we had some discussion about, and that is at the end with respect to penalties. I left language in here that the building official shall have discretion to extend the required time periods and waive fines as warranted depending on specific circumstances for a given property. I think in general, we don't want to provide that kind of discretion to the building official. We don't want to put that kind of responsibility on the building official. You know, it's much better to have clear-cut guidelines that need to be followed. But the thought here was that this is going to be a relatively rare circumstance in which we might have to use these kinds of provisions and, you know, enforce the requirements and the standards that are in here. So I left it in here for discussion, but you know, it's certainly open for comment.
I understand why you did it. I too like black and white. I think it opens up, it puts the building official or de facto building official at a disadvantage of whether or not they're picking favorites or not. I'm not in favor of that language, but that's just my opinion. Commissioner Jazinski.
I like it. I like it.
Okay. Commissioner, you like the way it's written?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Gibbons?
I think this allows for unique circumstances. And if you wanted to put the building official in consultation with the town manager, so it's not a single individual being held responsible for the decision, I'm
Totally
okay
do
with that.
yeah.
Yep, that's a good change.
Yeah, now, I mean, are our codes going to stay consistent with the county then?
I'm sorry?
Are our codes going to stay consistent with the county? on these?
Yeah, you did bring that up at the last meeting. I did look into that. The county basically defers to municipalities for something like this. They have their own standards, but there's, and I don't have the specific language, but basically they do defer to municipalities on this.
I mean, I just like whatever the county codes are, I think should be the same ones we have, and yeah, it's consistent across the board. Unless there's something we want to be more restrictive of, like the height of grass needs to be 1/10 of an inch shorter than the county. I don't care.
I'm sending you out with the tape measure.
Right.
All right. Do we have any changes as this has been proposed by Commissioner Persinger?
I would like item, line 84, to say the building official in consultation with the town manager shall have discretion to extend these time,
Okay. And was that a motion?
please.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thought you were going to abstain.
I was thinking about it.
Okay.
Discussion possible amendment to building permits requirements approved in December to address concerns from businesses about the burden of satisfying reporting and approval requirements for maintenance projects costing between $1,000 and $10,000. The new building permit provision are effective April 1st. Commissioner Persinger.
You may recall that in December, we passed an ordinance that would change some of the building permit requirements for maintenance projects that are less than $10,000. And the town in the newsletter recently did a very nice job of talking about what those changes are. During our discussion in December, it was pretty clear that this could mean, could pose a problem. These new standards could pose a problem for some of the businesses in town, particularly during the summer season. And so there was, I think even though we passed this, and that once it goes into effect in April, as is, it would apply to all properties, commercial as well as residential. I think there was certainly acknowledgement that we needed to think through a little bit how we might be able to, for the town to have the kind of information it needs, but also accommodate the burden that it would pose for the businesses here in town. So there are some suggested changes here, and these would apply to those projects that are between $1,000 and $10,000, and they qualify as maintenance projects. And so this would be, in the original ordinance, this was section 2. This would amend chapter 71-4. The changes would relate to paragraph D. And I don't know if you have in front of you, let's see, let me get the right version here.
Yes.
D?
Yeah, this is paragraph D. We have some changes. There was a red line version, and that it's easiest to see if you have
Yes.
the red line version in front of you. But basically, the change would be, there was a change to paragraph C as well. For residential properties during all months of the year, any work between $1,000 and $10,000, these are intermediate maintenance projects, work could proceed upon approval acknowledgement of the proposed activity by the town building official. We would make a difference here, a distinction for commercial properties. During the months of October through April, when obviously it's the off-season, commercial properties would have to follow those same procedures as well. But during the months of May through September, commercial property intermediate maintenance projects could proceed without prior acknowledgement and approval. But for each of those months, commercial properties should submit a report on intermediate maintenance projects for the previous month. So reports would be due by June 15th, July 15th, August 15th, September 15th, and October 15th. And then in each report, you would have a list of each intermediate maintenance project, a description of the maintenance activity, and information substantiating the total cost. And I believe those are the only changes that have been considered here. So that's open for discussion. I think the reporting burden is certainly less. I don't know, we need to hear from the businesses to know whether or not how that comports with their perception of what the reporting burden would be.
Is there, well, open up for the public for any comment?
Ms. Laird, would you like to come forward?
Kate, anyone online? My only comment on this, and then if anybody comes in, please let them in, is, it is, the resident, I do believe that we should move towards different residential, commercial, just because of the nature of what happens, but I don't know if I would restrict it in the months. I would just have it as a subsequent month, because many of our restaurants in town are open all year long. That's not just through, whether it's, Starboard Claw, Starboard Raw, Woody's, et cetera. So if the process works, then I don't know why we wouldn't just have it as a year-round process.
For commercial properties.
Yes.
So for each month, they would have to submit.
For the subsequent,
report.
yeah, on the 15th of the subsequent.
Sure.
I do have a question.
Jim?
Yeah.
Mr. Dedes?
Yeah, I do have a question, because the question would be, do we issue a permit or just it's a fee? How do you, I think for the building official to issue a permit after the fact puts the building official in a very precarious position. They've reviewed the material, they've received the permits, they've received what they've done. I would just assume, why can't we just use this as an administrative assessment fee at whatever percentage rate and eliminate the issuance of a permit, period?
Well, I don't think we're talking about issuing a permit either for
There
commercial
would
or
be,
residential properties.
there would have to be one for flood zone.
Well, that's,
That's why I'm saying, I would just assume, why even bother fooling with it? The building official should not be involved in this at all then. Because it's an honor system, quite frankly. And, I don't know that we need the building permit involved in this, the official.
It seems to be a lot of transactions, correct, Jim?
It's just a transaction that occurred. It's sort of, and just try to limit it as administrative repair work, whatever you want to call it. But
the idea, the ordinance that we passed in December, let's just say when we're talking about residential properties,
right,
if you have a maintenance project, and we've defined maintenance activities, if you have a project that is between $1,000 and $10,000 in total cost, you simply have to notify the town of what you're going to do, and there would have to be some official form that the town would have. It wouldn't necessarily be a building building permit application form. It could be. But you would simply have to provide, the town would have to acknowledge that they've received that form and then provide some, approval. Okay, go ahead. And your level of review would be, this is a maintenance activity, and you've given me information on the total cost of the project. It's between $1,000 and $10,000, but you wouldn't actually issue a building permit. So that would be the same situation for the commercial projects. You would be collecting the information on a monthly basis on all of the maintenance activities that they have within that cost range to make it an intermediate activity.
okay.
And so you would have the total cost, you would know what they've done, and you would be able to go back and review that information. If there's something that looks problematic to you in terms of the work that's being done and its impact on a property in the flood zone, then you'd have the opportunity to go back and discuss that with them. That was the whole
No,
idea.
I understand what
And it
you're
would be no
saying.
fee, there would be no fee associated with it.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just, actually, I was preparing to have a meeting with some of the staff to discuss how do we handle these, and I think we could come up with something. I just don't know where I'm gonna maintain the record. Because right now we maintain records in Edmonston, in the Edmonds, and I don't know, and we do it by property. So I would like an extension on this, if at all possible. I mean, if you want to pass it, you pass it. It becomes, how do we track all of this? Or do we even need to track it?
Okay, well, this is not up for a vote today. This is just, we've already passed the ordinance.
I know.
in December. That takes effect April 1. This is not in the form of an ordinance, so we would have to put it in that form and then come back and pass it or consider it in March. So there's time to do that.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity to simplify it for both the businesses as well as town hall, not to make it more complicated, Jim.
No, I understand that. It's just, what do we do with these records? I mean, to me, it'd be a one-shot deal. I mean, basically, we are in an honor system here.
Well, we are with residents too.
Yes, absolutely.
So, well, as Gary pointed out, this is a discussion.
Okay.
I would suggest you get your concerns to Gary, to Commissioner Persinger, so that we can tighten this up in the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
The town manager had a word, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I can send it to Commissioner Purdy. It was about county requirements but I'll send it to Commissioner
Okay.
Purdy.
All right. Anything else, sir?
Nope, all right, that's it.
Hold on, my print got cut off. I can't see the next.
I think this is the
Mr.
stormwater runoff.
Commissioner Persinger again wants to talk.
Be nice.
Yeah.
I abstain.
M, discussion of a draft ordinance to amend chapter 185-94 regarding stormwater runoff, gutter and downspouts. Council may vote to refer this matter to planning commission. Commissioner Persinger.
This was actually part of the property maintenance standards that were recommended by the Charter and Code Review Committee, but because it affects chapter 185, the zoning code, there's a need to refer this to planning and zoning. So there is a little bit of reorganization here. Existing paragraph C is moved down to paragraph D, and there's a new paragraph C, which basically says that construction or renovation of new residential and commercial mixed-use structures shall ensure that all water generated on a property shall be maintained entirely within the boundaries of that property. That's the essence of it. So we would hopefully vote today to refer this to P&Z for their recommendations.
Any questions of Commissioner Persinger? Council? Anyone here for comment?
I'll motion it.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Closing of the meeting. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Bauer.
Nothing.
Commissioner Persinger.
I have no comments.
Commissioner Givings.
I am so glad that we're going to have the chief with us going forward, and hope she feels appropriately appreciated by all of us here in town. I wanted to note that with this lovely budget that we have moved forward, we've done it with no property tax and without any of us being compensated for our efforts.
You didn't get your check?
No.
No, I heard
Commissioner Jazinski.
Everything Commissioner Gibbings said.
Ditto. Just two different things. One is the next meeting will be Friday, March 20th at 3 o'clock. The second thing is the Dewey Beach, Rehoboth Beach Chamber of Commerce has reached out at that time of year again for the town to put somebody forth as volunteer of the year. So I'll ask the commissioners or any of the public, if you have any suggestions, please forward them to me, and then I'll meet with the town manager to discuss who our volunteer of the year would be for 2025.
I think it should be Gary.
I don't disagree with you, but again, you can send me those recommendations. All right,
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
of course.
Just real quick, and I know it's not part of, our employees do a lot of different jobs. They wear a lot of different hats. A good example of that is our clerk. She does the clerk work, she does all the IT, she does her newsletter, she does social media, and she helps me. So when you look across the board at Lewis, Rehoboth, and Bethany, they have different people for all three of those jobs. And they're all paid anywhere from $60,000 up to $90,000 a piece. We're getting all that in most of our employees with just one employee doing all those different jobs. So we're very fortunate. I just want to make sure the public understands that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who would have thought we'd have been done in
No, it's the